Well, as we wait for new details on the deadly mass shooting, local leaders are weighing in on the horrible tragedy.
And we're joined now live by the president of the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Cindy Chavez. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Supervisor Chavez. Our first chance to speak with you in the wake of what happened yesterday. There is a 10 a.m. press conference, we're told, out at VTA headquarters, so we're expecting to learn more then. But your reactions and what have you heard so far about the investigation as it stands?
So first of all, I just want to say that I know our whole country is really grieving with these families that lost loved ones, and it's really horrific. 9 people went to work thinking they were going to come home that day, and their families thought the same thing, and they won't ever. So I think we're still all dealing with the grief and the shock.
And as we wait for more details to come out of this investigation, obviously families, friends, they're grieving right now. For those who happen to be watching this broadcast, what words can you offer them as we await more information to come out?
I think that, just knowing that there's so many of us that love and support them. VTA is a close-knit family. It's a 2,100 employee organization. They are extremely strong, brave men and women who work there. And, we're also just sharing our condolences with them. Just a reminder, during COVID-19, they didn't let the buses stop running or light rail stop running. And they're making sure that the buses are running, and VTA is providing services today, even given this horrific crime. So, the other thing I would say for those in the community who want a way to help, there is a fund for the families set up that you can go to at actact.wpusa.org to make a contribution to the families.
It seems like we continuously see these tragedies happen, one after the next, For you, what solutions do you think that you can put into place along with other officials to make sure we don't see something like this again here in the Bay Area?
It's a really good question. And one of the challenges I think we face is that, somebody, and I think it might have been a reporter, was telling me that we in our country have had 241 mass shootings since January. And when you think about that, what it helps remind all of us is that we think about these incidences happening in other people's backyards, but this is our backyard. And this is actually the second time in less than 2 years that we've had this happen when you think about the Gilroy Garlic Festival shooting. So 2 things, I think. One is that we can't normalize this. Like, as a country, we have to decide enough is enough. And that this, I think it's been kind of a false debate between whether or not we have safe gun laws or not. And this is a really good example of how red flag laws could be really helpful, especially if they're properly staffed, so that we're able to, when someone raises concern about a particular person, able to go take a look at that person, take any firearms that they have if we think they're a risk to themselves or others in our community. And then the other is we do have tools like gun restraining orders that many people in our community don't know about. So I think we need to do more education.
And is there anything that you would offer up as advice to, let's say, Governor Newsom or President Biden at the state or federal level? What kind of support, what kind of changes would you like to see at that level that could trickle down and help local officials like yourself?
One thing is that it's very easy to buy firearms, and making sure that the databases that are in place are really rigorous in terms of making sure that people with mental illness or gun restraining orders or other kind of restraining orders don't have access to these kinds of weapons. But I think a bigger question is how available these weapons are on the street. And what that's going to take is a whole different approach to how we think about our own safety in our communities. I mean, the reality is that the nation's filled with guns. People, your neighbors may have firearms. The fact of the matter is that we need to have a different attitude overall about firearms. And, so far the Congress and the Senate have been really unwilling to take the necessary steps that are really going to provide safety for our communities across the country.
Talking with other officials this morning, they brought up the fact that mental health obviously is an important side to all of this as well. doing what we can on the, gun side of it is one thing, but also providing assistance for people who may be struggling with mental health. There are reports coming out now that perhaps the shooter may have suffered from a bipolar disorder. His ex-wife has been telling media outlets that he would be very happy one day and then extremely depressed and angry the next day. Resources for people that need to find help in their most desperate times. Oftentimes it's very difficult to get. What can be done to make that easier?
That's an excellent question. And I think there are a couple things that can be done. One is that we all need to accept that behavioral health and mental health services are as primary to us as medical services. And it's interesting because we understand that if you break an arm, you're going to go to the emergency room, we're going to get your arm set. We don't yet nationwide have the kind of system that we need for people who have mental health needs. So I think one is that we really have to expand the number of clinicians, psychiatrists, and medical professionals that get into this field and frankly that can afford to live in this county and provide those services. But the other thing that you're reminding me of is that the behavioral health services that the county provides were and are in the process of being expanded. And as we think about new resources coming down from the federal government as part of any kind of recovery effort, one area that we could absolutely fund more robustly is our mental health services and making sure that we can have as many services available to the public as possible. Then the other thing we need to make sure of is people have training to make sure that people who need mental health services actually access them. Because one of the challenges is you could have somebody who has mental health disorders maybe not know it or maybe not be interested in getting treatment. Understanding how to get someone to get into treatment is going to be another critical part. So I hope it's part of the American Rescue Plan and other infrastructure investments that get made. Remember that medical services are part of infrastructure too in this country.
Now, we've been talking to several people this morning, and one instance was a company that offered active shooter training. Does the city there, the county, offer active shooter training for different businesses in that area?
Well, as a matter of fact, the Valley Transportation Authority had active shooter training. The Santa Clara County Sheriff's Department provided that training. They provide the policing services for VTA. And, one of the things I don't think we'll know right away, but I think we'll know in days to come, is how that active shooter training saved lives in this instance. The other thing I'll just acknowledge is that the Sheriff's Department is right next door to the Guadalupe Light Rail facility where this instance, where this violence occurred. And the sheriffs were able to get there, as a matter of fact, both to engage the suspect, but also they got there fast enough to hear shots fired. So I think that we're going to find that there was a lot that went right. We always want to look at these instances to see what we could do better to save more lives.
And I'm also reminded that your office buildings, the county office buildings there on Heading, served as the Reunification Center yesterday for families who were desperate to find information about their loved ones. Were you there at the time families were there? And I don't know, what were some of the things you heard?
I was there with families and other employees who were waiting to be reunified with their families. And, just a lot of sadness, a lot of grief and shock over what they'd all experienced. And then for families waiting to learn more about what had happened to their loved ones, just a lot of tension and a lot of fear. And, and I think we're just reminded that we really are, as a community, one family, and that this is an opportunity for us really to support those families. And that's why I gave the donation number, but also I think making sure that people know in our community that we care about them and that we're here for them.
And then maybe that'd be a good opportunity to remind everybody again what that donation information was if they'd like to help some of these grieving families get through this.
Thank you. It's they can go to act.wpusa.org to make a contribution to the families.
All right, Supervisor Chavez, we thank you so much for sharing some of your time with us this morning. I know you and your fellow supervisors are going to be pretty busy here in the days to come trying to put things into place to help the family members, the relatives, and the community at large. Any final thoughts you have for them before we say goodbye this morning?
Just that our hearts go out to them, and we're grateful to the men and women who rushed in when the bullets were flying to save other lives. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back.